Happy solstice. It's summer solstice today. The,
Yay.
the Astrology Star Sisters Talk over tea. Summer solstice Cancer Decans with Astrology and Tarot. And my guest today is Joy Vernon. Thank you for joining me today, Joy. How you doing?
Good. Good. I'm really excited to be here. So thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and I hope you'll come back and do some more with me.
Yes, yes.
So to get a hold of Joy, her website is joyvernon.com, and you can email her at joy@joyvernon.com. And my website is alightpath.com. So here's a pretty picture of some flowers for summer solstice. I took this picture of my mother's yard, so
I love it.
this
Very
this is
summery.
this is the earliest summer solstice since 1796, so I thought that was an interesting fact. And then the next summer solstice on June 20th will be in 2028. So here's the astrology chart for summer solstice today at 1:51, and we are looking at the chart for Seattle. Do you want to comment on anything in the chart, or?
Oh, I think I don't know. I don't know that it's showing up necessarily in the chart strongly, but the fact that there's a full moon tomorrow, I think that's interesting. I mean that it's a full day away, so the moon doesn't look like it's going to be going to be there, but it will. It covers a lot of territory, so I think that's kind of a fun little thing, just in terms of the moon being waxing right now and going into that full moon kind of culmination energy point, right just the day after. So I think that's kind of nice. So what
It's like the full moon enhances the summer solstice, and the summer solstice enhances the full moon.
yeah, it's always nice when lunar and solar cycles sync up. And this, I mean, this is a day apart, but it's still close, and so it's a nice little thing. And I guess especially since the sign of Cancer is ruled by the moon, so it's kind of like, well, how's the moon feeling about this today? It's like the moon's pretty happy.
I would have to agree. Thank you for those comments. So the sign of Cancer, it's a cardinal. It initiates and or creates. It's a water sign of the crab, and ruled by the moon, like Joy just mentioned. The mantra is I feel. It's very nurturing, motherly, emotional, sensitive, and feels. And the caution can be overly emotional, moody, and touchy. Would you like to add anything to that?
um, I mean that covers quite a bit. I think that there's I feel like Cancer is very empathic, and so I definitely include a lot of that energy to it. And there's kind of an imaginative, or there's a creative quality, but I believe that the Cancer variation, I mean, there's creativity in all the signs of different sorts, right? And so there's a creative quality, but I feel like in Cancer it is very dreamy and imaginative. And so I think those are qualities that I really like to tune into when I'm connecting with Cancer energies.
Well, thank you for adding that. I appreciate that. Okay. Um, and then we have a few planets that are out of bounds, and that means that they are in the far north or the far south of a declination exceeding 23 degrees and 27 minutes. And so they and that 23, 27 is the bounds of the sun, basically, its latitude. And so when planets go out of bounds, I always think of them as being little children that are acting on their own and trying to get away with things. So we have Moon, Mercury, Venus, and then we have Ceres and Pallas Athena, which are two asteroid goddesses. So, that moon is going to act a little independent, perhaps.
Yes, yeah. And it's really interesting that the three planets here that are out of bounds are the ones that rule our three decans that we're going to be talking about today. So it's very interesting. All three of those are, well, the moon has already gone through Cancer this month and will return in July, but Venus and Mercury will also be going through Cancer, are in it already, and will be going through Cancer this month. And so it just is kind of very interesting to see that going on. I think that there's and it makes me wonder. I don't honestly pay a lot of attention to out of bounds planets, so I'm like, is that common for any reason? Are there times of year when they go out of bounds? I don't know how it works. So I'm just curious. But they're the ones ruling our three decans that we're going to talk about. And a lot of times decanic symbolism is a symbolism of being on your own and independent and surviving only by your wits, and just about by what you have. And so the very idea of kind of going out of bounds, like you said, children that are have moved out of earshot of the parents or whatever, that kind of makes good sense, because if something were to happen, those children would then have to take care of it themselves, and they wouldn't have that backup. And so I think it's a really nice and very interesting occurrence here, in alignment with those decans.
Well, and it goes in cycles, because I know that moon will be out of bound on a pretty regular basis for the rest of this year and pretty much most of next year. But it has a cycle, so every about 18 years it goes out more, and it could even be down to 13 years. But it'll happen more often, and then the other planets don't happen as often. So it's kind of interesting that we have so many at this time.
Okay, yeah, it is very interesting.
So I wanted us to kind of like review what the decans are, or they can also be called the decanates. They originated in Egypt, and at first were aligned with fixed stars, and then they changed it to align with the 12 astrological signs. And dec, I think, is how you say it, means 10 degrees, and the decans are divided into three equal parts of 10 degrees each. Um, and we're going to use the Chaldean, so it's the order of the speed of the planets of how they came about that. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think one thing that's really interesting to observe here is that the decans originated in Egypt, as you say here, and they were used. There's kind of some scholarly discussion around this, but it's often a number of people think that they were used kind of as markers of time, such as they were these 10-day periods of the year. So they marked kind of these 10-day periods of weeks. But they also divided the sky up into 36 sections. And it was the Chaldeans over in another part of the world that developed the 12 zodiac signs. So it was this, there's that kind of excitement when two different systems come together. And so one system was developed in Egypt. The 36 Decans, the 12 zodiac signs were developed by the Chaldeans, and then it all merged and meshed at a later time, so that those decans were considered 1/3 of each zodiac sign. In Egypt, the decans, as you say here, were aligned with those fixed stars, and they were each of those stars was really considered a representation of a particular deity, or the embodiment of a deity. And so there was very much a sense of like divine connection, and which deity is watching over us at this time. And then that would change about every 10 days, the way they calculated it.
Thank you for going into that for us. I appreciate that. So we're going to go into Cancer, and the major arcana card, the Chariot, represents the sign of Cancer. And would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, of course. I think this is one of the more difficult assignments in terms of the kind of the logic of whether or not that really fits very well. In earlier tarot decks and in earlier iconography, any chariot with two beasts pulling it, two horses typically, was going to be related to Mars. And you can see even card decks that are older, that predate the tarot, and some that postdate the actual official start of the tarot, that have that image of a chariot with two horses, and they do label it Mars. And so, Mars is very different from Cancer, and is actually, I mean, he rules the water triplicity, but other than that, he's in fall in Cancer and not considered to be very strong. They're very confident. The Hebrew letter that's assigned to the Chariot is Het, which means fence. And that actually does start to fit a little bit of the Cancer energy. Just when we think of some kind of boundary or fence, we think of that shell with the Cancer crab. And so that starts to get a little bit like, okay, I can see where this might line up. And remember, of course, that the associations of the astrological signs to the cards was not logicked out. Instead, it was based on much older correlations that were already established for the Hebrew letters, and that derive from the Sefer Yetzirah. And so the Hebrew letters, 22 Hebrew letters, there's 22 tarot cards. You just line them up, and each card is going to match to a letter that already had an astrological association. So by default, the Chariot got Cancer, even though previously that iconography would have been Mars. So trying to then go forward and see some of how we might make that fit, one of the main arguments is that this is the sun's longest day. It's its greatest triumph. And so there can be that victory component that we see with a chariot. There is water in this card, and sometimes it can be hard to see, but there's like a stream or a river that's coming right behind that chariot. Some people even describe the chariot as coming out of that water, like a crab or like some kind of watery watery being of some type. And so those are some of the symbols that we can see and that can really help us to understand the card. I think those are the main things, probably. I don't know, I could go on forever, but I think I probably better stop.
Well, and I often think as the Chariot is being a scout, so you would scout out your area to make sure you're going to be safe and secure. And Cancer is about, safety and security too.
Yeah,
So, and then in
yeah,
this card, it has the little slivers of moon on his shoulders. So, that's, another how they, maybe helped make it correspond. So,
yeah, yep, yeah.
okay. And then we have the first decan of Cancer is the Two of Cups, Venus in Cancer. And we have the timing of that from July 17th or June 17th to about July 11th. Go ahead.
So yeah, I think one of the nice things, and Venus is in that decan right now, and I think one of the nicest things for me is really tuning in through meditation and imagination, which are good Cancerian things anyway, or at the very least lunar things. But whenever any planet is in its own decan, it's a really great time to tune in and connect with that planet and learn to understand it better, which we can do through, again, imagination and meditation. This card is titled Love, and it's pretty straightforward. We see a couple. They seem to be affectionate towards one another. There's symbolism in there of healing, but also of elevating to this higher level, or to this more spiritual level. And so I think there's a lot of depth to the symbolism in this card. This will be the Cardinal decan, the first decan of the three, and so it has that initiating quality to it. And we can even see that as a mini 3-card story that might evolve, showing perhaps two people early on connecting, and that first step into love, into a relationship. So I think there's a lot of that kind of a lot of that energy that we can see here. There's a hesitation. I guess that's what I'm thinking. There's a hesitation. There's a little bit of a hesitation going on. And so the idea of something beginning, I think, comes out nicely with this card. What are your thoughts on this card?
Well, that they're, even though cups really aren't about communication, they're more about feeling, but it feels like that they get along together well. And, they could be making some kind of an agreement, and it just feels good. It's like they're, sharing their compassion and love for each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we have the Cancer decan number 2, which is the Three of Cups, Mercury in Cancer, abundance. And that's from June 17th to July 1st, or maybe it's the 22nd. Oh no, it's June 22nd to the 26th. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it goes through. So it'll actually, so Mercury's already in Cancer, and it'll enter the second decan of Cancer in 2 days, in June 22nd. And Mercury's going at a decent rate now, so it'll just be about 4 days or so in that decan. These are really nice cards that are the three Cancer ones are really nice. Some of the just happiest to have in the deck. And so, you know, we see these three women, they're raising their cups, they seem to be toasting or celebrating. There are harvest vegetables around, so a sense of abundance, which is the title of the card. There's a lot of enjoyment and pleasure that we see here, and definitely a sense of connection and friendship. And so this is definitely a very happy card. And Mercury, I mean, Mercury is about communication. And I think a lot of this, like when this card comes up in a reading for somebody, particularly if they're asking about career, and it doesn't seem like it's a, you know, how does this relate to career? It's people at Friday afternoon club, maybe, you know, maybe they're going out for a beer after work. It doesn't seem career related, but in fact, what we really get with this card is that sense of communicating Mercury through pleasurable and pleasurable activities, and food and drink are very Cancer oriented. Just that idea of enjoyment and nourishment are Cancer related things, and they're also illustrated here in the card. And so a lot of times in a reading, this card might come up to represent networking, to represent, I got it a lot. I remember one of the early times that I recognized that meaning for it, and I was reading for a client, and I said, you know, are you taking people out to dinner to talk to them about your, I knew that she was a salesperson, but I didn't know what she was selling. I said, are you like taking people out for lunch to talk to them about what you're doing? Because this says that you need to be more, have a more casual, fun, and enjoyable approach to the work that you're doing. And she said that, as a matter of fact, she was actually supposed to be taking people out for lunch, and she hadn't been. And so it was really interesting. It was like, okay, yeah, definitely start doing that. That's going to make a big difference.
Well, and if that came up for me in a work environment, and say I was going to get a new job or something, that might say that that environment might be pretty friendly and happy, and that there's good communication, and it's not drudgery or, you know, all hard work.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, and then we go on to Cancer Decan number 3, the Four of Cups, Moon in Cancer, and from June 8th through the 9th. But I think it's longer than that, isn't it? Or is it?
No, because it'll only that's in Cancer 3. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, just it's the 7th through the 9th that'll go through Cancer, and then it's in the third decan for, like, I think it was from 6 p.m. on June 8th to noon. I forget. I honestly forget. It's definitely less than a day. It was like 3/4 of a day, but I forget
Okay.
what the actual times were. So yeah, so it's so that one has passed, and of course we'll get that new moon in Cancer coming up on July 5th. So that's when we can look for that. And I mean, new moons are always a really nice time to tune into the energy of a sign, because we have both I think, for me, I think there's people that would disagree with that, but I like new moons. I've heard so many people lately seem to be very anti new moons. I like them. But I mean, it's the sun and moon coming together in part of their cycle, and I think that that's an important one. And so coming together in that moon's cycle, and sure, maybe the sun is taking up too much of the energy. Maybe you want to wait until it's a full moon in Cancer, and the moon's way over there in Capricorn. But nevertheless, I like those new moons. I think this is I think this card. I think the main thing I want to talk about is the blended pleasure title for this. It's an odd phrase, and Crowley doesn't call it that. Crowley calls it luxury, but the Golden Dawn title is actually blended pleasure. And we can see this is what a lot of people call the meh card, because there's just that sense of apathy on the character. I mean, arms crossed, legs crossed. He's just kind of sitting there. He's not very engaged. And so, and that's where that blended pleasure comes in. And I think that there is a time when we have two feelings at the same time. Maybe a feeling of completing something that coincides with a feeling of, oh, that wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. Or maybe a very happy feeling of, I finished this and I've been working so hard at it, and why am I not more happy or excited or fulfilled or something? I think that's a lot of what that blended pleasure is, when you're feeling two contrary experiences at the same time, or that the feeling you have is contrary to what you thought it was going to be. And so I think that this again, if we take our little story, we had the Two of Cups, which is this couple meeting. The Three of Cups could be, them building their relationship and connecting with other people, connecting with friends, building a community or a family even. And then going into this Four of Cups now, which is this, which feels a lot less engaged than the other two cards. Sometimes people notice, I mean, for me, the main symbolism is the Three Cups together and the fourth being offered. I had one person in one of the groups I was leading talking about those Four Cups representing the four stages of the four phases of the moon. And so I think that's a really nice way to look at it. And the offered cup could just simply be whatever phase of the moon is coming up next. In this case, we've got that full moon tomorrow. It's just like what's next is a little bit of how that works. I feel like the person has three of this, is somehow dissatisfied and has the opportunity for a fourth, but does he want more of the same? Will it be different? Would it be better? Would it finally be the thing that he wants? I think that's the main energy of the card. And I think the moon has a certain amount of, the moon it goes through those cycles, which gives it that feeling of always changing. And so it's not something you can pin down. And, if you think you've got it, it's going to be something different. And I think that energy really plays into this card and the illustration here, giving us that sense of perpetual changeability.
Well, and the moon changes signs every 2.5 days. So it is, constantly changing every 2.5 days. So, and it does rule our emotional nature. So it's like that makes sense about the blended pleasures, because you could be, more positive, and then another few days neutral, and then maybe a little bit down. And too, like when you come up to a new moon, and I love new moons too. I like all the phases actually. So it's like if you finished a big project, it's like maybe you don't want it to end, like you said, but it's time to go on to the next step. And so it's like you know how much effort you put into it, and so now it's like, okay, now I get to begin again. Now if the efforts didn't pay off so well or something, you might be really excited. So that dual nature or that blended pleasure certainly shows up, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I would also say, like, kind of pay attention that you don't miss that cup that's being offered to you, that you don't miss an opportunity too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find the fours in general, any of the fours, a lot of times fours have that sense of solidity, and there's a certain sense of completion that we can even see with some of the fours, and people tend to give up when they get to four. And a lot of times, if I see somebody is things are looking good for something they're working on, and then the final outcome is a four, I'm like, you can continue to work on this. This will get better, but I see that you're going to give up here. And invariably, that is the energy that is motivating them and trying to work through that. I feel like I've done everything, and it's at an end. It's like, no, you're just at four. You get to go all the way to 10. Keep trying, keep trying.
Well, and four in numerology is about putting the effort in, and it does require energy. And I believe that sometimes people, you're almost there, and then you like give up before you almost are there. So,
Yeah.
okay. And then we have the Queen of Cups, the Gemini Cancer energy, the last decan of Gemini, and the first two decans of Cancer.
So, and to me, I mean, the Queen of Cups for Cancer and is just a really, really nice expression of that energy. Um, uh, the and she just embodies all of that, the imagination, the nurturing, the kind of the maternal energy, but also that kind of insightful, intuitive, empathic connection that she has so easily with people. The fact that her cup is covered, which she's the only one with a covered cup, indicates that. And I really don't like, it's not my habit to go through cards and just give meanings for them, or talk about specific symbols and give meanings for them. I'm much more interested in exploring them and working with them and uncovering what you can discover about them. But that covered cup could possibly refer to, what is held inside, what is protected, what is surrounded in order to keep it safe, maybe what is growing or gestating. And so it's definitely something that you can really spend some time with to try to understand better.
Yes, she's nurturing something there, and she's sitting there by the water. So, a very beautiful representation. And the cards that we've been showing today are the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And then, so do you have anything else to say about the Cancer decans and the Cancer season or the solstice?
I think we covered a pretty decent amount there.
Okay, I'm going to do my quote because I like to add a quote. We must walk consciously only partway toward our goal and then leap in the dark to our success. Henry David Thoreau. And please come back for more episodes of the Astrology Star Sisters Talk over tea. And then some upcoming episodes are the monthly astrology forecast for July and the second full moon in Capricorn. And then Joy will be back for the Leo Decans, Astrology and Tarot. And then the Dwarf Planet series and the moon with Sue Minahan. And Mercury retrograde in Virgo with Madam Simon. And then I'm on Talk Cosmos, and we're going to be talking about the Cancer new moon on the archetypal symbol team. And that's on June 30th at 1 p.m. live on YouTube. And if you want to get a hold of Joy, again, it's joyvernon.com is her website. And my website is alightpath.com. So do you have anything going on right now that you wanted to share, or?
Oh, nothing specific. I've got. I would just recommend that people head on over to my website because there's just a lot of material there. I mean, joyvernon.com, and that's where you can book a reading. It's where you can find my classes listed. I do have a meetup group that that meets online currently, but I'm in Burien, Washington for in person. We might have some in-person meetups this summer. So yeah, those are some ways to connect with me. I have a blog and a YouTube channel.
Well, thank you for being here with me today. I enjoyed having you, and we will be back again. And I want to thank those watching live and also those that are watching in the future, and we appreciate your support.